Love Life Bluebird. Latest project in Love Life. I feel like we're treading some of the ground. It's definitely one of the most unique projects Love Life has had, and we had Nijigasaki almost a decade ago and Hasuna Soa just a few years ago. They're definitely oh who am I kidding, let's not sugarcoat it. Bluebird is probably one of the slowest and boringest projects Love Life has had in a while. Never before can every announcement Bluebird make be perceived with people wishing for an anime or SIF free because Bluebird isn't that interesting. That isn't to say the characters and premise aren't intriguing, but the rate stuff is being pumped down what we're getting. It's not enough to keep fans around. Other groups didn't have this long wait that felt like it took ages to get to the point. Love Life has fallen. This is a perspective some fans have had regarding the existence of Bluebird. And just to be clear, I overplayed that shit. If one of you fuckers posts that clip out of context and pushes the narrative that I hate the series or something, I will find you. But going back to the topic, the way Bluebird has been advertising itself and in turn the content they're producing is one that has received interesting reception. It's true that in recent times, Love Life has made a lot of decisions that are very questionable, and I'm not just referring to global stuff. There's many other things we can call out Love Life for, like the games and other things. As Love Life keeps experimenting with new forms of content, it's inevitable they'll shoot their own foot occasionally. No one's perfect after all, and Bluebird is definitely not. I mean that figuratively and literally. They're literally asking us for our help, those lazy fucks. Anyway, the discussion from Bluebird, from what I've seen while I casually surf the web and talk to friends, is one that expresses disappointment / nothing burger over the content we're receiving. The most we're getting are songs, and that's all we've been getting in the time that Bluebird has been alive. There's no signs of an anime, no signs of a clear direction, and that's made even more apparent with the streams and voting addressing that they don't even know exactly what they're fully doing. It's worrying, and also looking at the production value seems to paint this series currently as a sort of budget group. No animation, we have motion graphic based music videos, they look like PNG tubers. That isn't to indicate it's low quality of course, but in contrast to other groups visually, it seems that way. We haven't gotten to see these characters in motion at all, and with the questions of whether or not Bluebird's getting an anime, it really makes you question how much money they're giving this group. A part of you may even begin to think that other groups had it way better, and I mean hey, they didn't advertise themselves on Twitter, so that automatically gives them bonus points for that. A while ago, I made a video on Bluebird and its connection to Muse, how its content spread and planning was specifically based on how Muse started, and in turn, how Love Life initially started. Small scale, voting, not really much of a direction, and to be clear, I still believe in that. I still believe that's the intention with Sakura Kimino's involvement and the direct Muse references we've gotten. But consider a different perspective, which is something I do very often on my videos. When you peel back the intention, what the purpose is, what do we have? Just because something's intended to be directionless and small scale doesn't change the fact that it is directionless and small scale. You place it side by side to other groups, and you'll see that the other groups outperform Bluebird in terms of content and what they did when they started. Or do they? If there's one thing I like making you do on this channel, it's think. Think for a second about the things I said in the video so far. I may have purposely lied about my thoughts and the facts I've said. Did you perhaps have a bit of doubt when I said that the other groups had more content than Bluebird, or did you just easily believe me there? In order to fully paint everything Bluebird has to offer, let's actually go over everything that Bluebird has done since its inception. And then, let's take a trip back in time to see what the other groups did. If you haven't been caught up on the stuff Bluebird has produced, don't worry, we got your back. And yes, I said we. Just like for my previous Bluebird video, I've decided to get help from local Bluebird enthusiast SecretSauce for his input on this video. He's way more into Bluebird than I am, as he owns the Discord for it, and he's been very adamant on his thoughts on Bluebird and some people's perception on it, making him the perfect fit for this video. Bluebird was announced at the end of the Love Life Asia tour on February 2nd, 2025. This short 1-minute teaser raised a ton of intrigue into what kind of project Love Life was going to tackle. Many fans immediately noticed the somber / dark tone of the teaser, with the girl crying being a major point of discussion. Fans noticing the Bluebird title did some of that translation, and it implied the project name of this group roughly meant something similar to Hard to Live Club or something like that. It implied to a lot of people, including myself, that this was gonna be dark as fuck and edgy, or I don't know, Ava Majiko type shit. I made a short about it right when the group was announced, so it was still fresh in everyone's mind. Almost 3 months later, on April 28th, 2025, we got another teaser for Love Life Bluebird, and the premise was pretty much established to those with a keen eye. The futuristic aesthetics, the captions telling us this group is going to use YouTube and Twitter as a way to display itself. This was going to be a group that would use social media in a way that other groups hadn't before. We were given the date, May 12th. Giving us less than a few weeks to be prepared on what we were going to get. And those who were on Twitter before May 12th realized that the project already started. Now I don't fully remember when it was exactly discovered, but many users found Twitter accounts that eerily matched the silhouettes of the Bluebird characters. I first discovered this on May 2nd and published a short showcasing this, and later it was clear these accounts were connected to the Bluebird project. Hey, There was one benefit of releasing those shorts, and it was documenting when this stuff happened. Reading the tweets of the characters revealed details about the school they're in, references to Aqua, and these tweets were up for a while, with the earliest being March 30th, I believe. This began a level of build up to what was to officially come, and Bluebird knew this as well. They started doing this countdown showing the silhouettes, basically confirming that the profiles we saw were in fact real, and when May 12th hit, we got multiple bombshells. Promotional video released, all 9 members' introductions released, and their first music video published, What Is My Life. Bluebird had officially begun. Now I want to address this, yes. Immediately, many people were kind of dumbfounded looking at this. Many were excited seeing a new Love Life group, but when this was released, this had some people confused. People immediately took note of the distinct contrast in style from the Bluebird teaser to what we have here. I've discussed it in my other Bluebird video, but I will just say again because no, seriously, what the fuck was this? Why would you do that? Anyway, right when What Is My Life was released, just a day later, bam, Say's revealed. Or the same day, I don't know, fuck time zones. This was a shit ton of info released at once, and the way I'm explaining it, that's a lot, right? And that was only 3 months into its inception, but let's keep going. Over the course of May and June, more info would be released individually about the characters and the setting the story would take place in. Each character would receive a sizable interview-esque video where they got to introduce themselves. On June 17th, they would have their first stream with the Seiyus where they would announce their first free performances and the unclear direction they were taking with this project. Yeah, I've been neglecting how a lot of fans reacted towards Bluebird's direction. With the way I've been stating things, it seems they shot out a ton of content smoothly, and while that still is true, I've been neglecting the reception of it. Many fans had this lingering question inside their head when looking at everything Bluebird was doing. So, what's going on here? What's Bluebird doing here? What's its game? What's its end goal? Is it going to result in an anime? This whole Twitter gimmick is unique, but when is it going to actually do something? Wait, is that all it's doing? This is a very complicated topic, and I'm gonna have to ask you politely to hold your horses because I want to keep going for what Bluebird has to offer. Within the months of June to August, Bluebird would begin uploading each of the characters' solo songs, begin having them implemented into Love Life Days, start asking fans for help with aspects such as their costumes, the songs they sing, and even their icons. This is something that took place both on YouTube and on Twitter, and you could debate that it was rigged or something, and I totally believe you, but the fact they allowed this showed they wanted to have a connection with its fan base. These are points I mentioned in my Bluebird and Muse video, but it's good to point them out again. Bluebird also released short drama tracks with the characters doing fun stuff like in Charisma House, which is what some of my friends compared it to, which is pretty on board, so thanks guys. They started doing their live performances in Japan, posting on TikTok, radio interviews, and their first live just happened. With that, you've pretty much caught up on what Bluebird has been doing so far. Sorry if I skim through a few things, but they do tend to get blended in with each other, as this video is just meant to show you a general showcase of how they started. And keep in mind, this is just in 7 months. A little over half a year and we've gotten all this. Now let's play a fun game in which we compare and contrast with how other groups started, just to give you an idea of how much content Bluebird has shot out. Muse is a pretty prime example to show you how much content Bluebird has pumped out, but that's sadly not a good example. It was the first group, it laid the groundwork, and it was a small indie company, leave them alone. A good example would be Aqua. The way marketing worked was different back then, but it still had elements of doing character introductions and voting for certain polls. And if we look at the history page in the wiki, we can see that it took around 6 months from April to October for Aqua to officially get its first single. This isn't to say they had no content, of course. 4 comas were coming out, short stories were coming out, popularity polls, work was being done to advertise these characters. Not even mentioning Sif, which pushed their inclusion heavily into the Love Life franchise. And of course, they got the anime announcement almost a year from when it was announced, but that was pretty far away from when Aqua initially started. This isn't to spark a competition, of course, God knows I don't want to do that, but I just want to address that in terms of content, Bluebird was on a comparable level with Aqua. I mean, if we want to have a better comparison, we can talk about NoodleGirl, which in that case, NoodleGirl had a very fucked up timeline of events. In fact, they're probably the best comparison to Bluebird since both have elements of solo idols. I already had a whole video on it, and I'm sorry for self-advertising, I know some of you are sick of it. NijiGirl obviously had really weird circumstances that made it as delayed as it did, and again, I'm not trying to say one is better than the other, I'm just trying to do a little comparison to build up on something I'll reveal soon. NijiGirl took around 2 years to really get the ball rolling, and similar to Bluebird, a lot of people wondered what they were exactly doing. But in its case, it did have something they were doing, it just got delayed. Keep in mind how I haven't mentioned the reception to Aqua and NijiGirl's content at the beginning, that's because, just give me a minute, man. Now for Liela. Liela's kind of in a weird spot because it had to deal with COVID, so I won't be too harsh on it. And again, I'm not trying to do a competition thing with it, just trust me. Liela was first announced as Hello Love Life on January 19th at Love Life Fest before officially being announced on the 28th. It would then take about 5 months where we got to reveal the group's name, the members, and an anime already planned. The project would then officially start on December 15th, and we wouldn't hear their first single till January 30th, with it officially releasing around April. Of course, I'm neglecting the usual character introductions, the Seiyu streams, all that jazz, things that are pretty in line with almost every Love Life group starting out. So let's look back on what we have here. If we really compare what Bluebird has pumped out to what the other groups have, it's pretty sizable and similar to what the past has done. In fact, I know some that would debate that Bluebird has more content than how other groups did. I mean, if we're being extremely technical, if we were to look at how every group did in their first 7 months, then Nijigasaki dies, Layla explodes, and Aqua is
light work, no reaction.
Now, why did I bring all this up? Was it to give Bluebird some bonus points? No, this part was specifically just to show that in terms of content, they're doing just fine. The reason I brought all this up was to bring another question into this puzzle: the fan reception. How did fans react to the content they were given for each respective group? Well, for Aqua, it was pretty mixed considering the disbandment of Muse just shortly before. A lot of people actually had the notion of not giving a shit about them until later elements arrived like the songs in the anime. Nijigasaki, well, got a bit of flack from fans for potentially replacing Aqua until they realized that wasn't the case, and it was just a sad baby on its own. Layla, well, it took almost a year for it to officially start, so it's a very bizarre case in terms of captivating people. We could talk about when it actually started and the fans that developed and the interesting instance that occurred, but that's a video for another time. We're just focusing on the time around when the group was first announced. So when it came to Bluebird's reception, where's Sifri in the anime? Yo, when is shit gonna actually happen? What is this project actually about? This shit's Comborn, not gonna lie. Is this true? Why the fuck are they using Twitter for this? Accessibility match? Why did they translate the songs, not the fucking introductory videos? The ones that tell us who the characters are! Okay, that last one was my own perspective. No, seriously, what the fuck, man? This is where things get a little complicated here. I don't try to forcefully self-advertise my own videos, but if you want to get a better perspective on what I'm about to say, I recommend watching my video on love life separation, and it's gonna play directly into what I'm about to say. In case you don't want to watch it, I basically iterate that a big reason why love life feels separated nowadays, especially in real life, is because of nothing being able to unify us anymore. I believe the games did a large part of grouping us all together because while a bunch of groups were going into different directions, there was still connecting tissue that we could hold on to. Now that that's gone, we're separated into our own lanes where many of us are in the love life for drastically different reasons. In turn, we get fans who aren't exactly a fan of certain types of content, like using tweets as a way to showcase a story. And that's completely fine. I addressed it in that video and how it was just inevitable since love life was growing so big. This was bound to happen, but with the exclusion of the games, which I again believe united the majority of love life fans, we now have discussions where people start to talk about love life as a whole rather than the individual groups. It's a shame because at one point you could talk about it as a whole, but nowadays it's an unfortunate reality. But how does this play into how Bluebird was received? Well, let's take a look at potentially why Bluebird was received the way it was. When Nijigasaki first started, was everyone and their mama asked about what it was doing, what its goals were immediately? No! In fact, did anyone know what Nijigasaki was about first? No! When Layla first got announced in January of 2020, were people on their ass talking about what they're gonna serve for the entire Love Life franchise? No! And you can't even use an argument point like how Bluebird is new and Aqua, Nijigasaki, and Layla are old so they get an excuse for their content. Because as I'm going to address later on, the amount of content isn't the point. Also, they have 22 songs in total and a live coming out soon. They also have so many tweets elaborating on certain characters' feelings, thoughts that serves an alternative way to the short stories you would see in the magazine panels, but from a first-person perspective. And also to add on to Nijigasaki's point regarding their content, not much of it was translated officially. A lot of it was fan done, and I mentioned that a lot in my Nijigasaki video. You didn't see people complaining about the accessibility of Nijigasaki back then, did you? At least I don't think so. It's been over half a decade. If anyone was complaining, please let me know. I don't want to generalize this issue. But Bluebird also has fan-translated stuff, and they're still getting shot on. It's almost like they're just not a fan of the style of content, which is perfectly fine, but if that's the case, why are their eyes on this? Individually, if we look at Bluebird, regardless if you don't fuck with the style of content they're doing, you can't deny there's a lot of shit to talk about regarding it. The Discord and real-life Japanese audience is proof of that, having discussions about character traits, relationships, and the lore bits that are placed into the tweets of the characters. Even if I myself can't always catch up, I can always respect what it's doing, and it clearly has its audience. So why is it being viewed in the lens of love life as a whole? Why is it being picked apart, overanalyzed, given pressure, and a greater level of responsibility than every other group besides like Aqua? Why can't it just be itself and be measured by that? Well, let's look at the circumstance regarding Bluebird. It was announced when the games were dead, so strike one. If you look at Nijigasaki or Layla, their content spread wasn't exactly the best at the start, but a lot of fans were kept in check by aspects such as the anime, Sif and Sifa's pushing out events and cards. They weren't treated like the successor to everything Love Life related. It was like shaking a toy in front of a baby now that I'm thinking about it. Please don't take that as an insult, by the way. It's just the only analogy I had. And strike two, the Asia tour. I think Bluebird being announced at the Asia tour was probably one of the biggest causes for Bluebird's perception. And strike free, that fucking teaser. Don't twist our ankle like that, man. I don't care if Trace are still in the series. You don't do that. The Asia tour had a lot of eyes on it, and I mean all the eyes. It was the first appearance of Muse in a very long time. It had members from every single group, and although not everyone was present, you bet your ass every fan of every group was going to be there. And just imagine this. It's the last day of the Asia tour. They did that ice cream shit. It's about to end. Every fan of every group is there. Maybe they're all uniting after years of not engaging much of love life. It's nice to be back. And then you get hit with this.
Tell me you aren't at least interested. That is how you hook someone in. What is this new Bluebird project? There were so many variables that made people have eyes on Bluebird, and Love Life kind of purposely did that. Now, was that the Bluebird's benefit? I'd say no, given the climate of when it was released. I'm gonna take this time to go on a quick detour to talk about the Metroid series. This will make sense, I promise. Metroid had a really good run when Metroid Prime and Fusion released back in 2002. From the years leading up to 2010, they were pumping out Prime sequels and many other games, including a full remake of the original Metroid. It was a nice time until Other M came out. Now, regardless of whether you personally like the game, it was not received the best by both critics and fans, and caused a bit of a hiatus in the Metroid franchise. For almost 5 years, there was nothing Metroid related, until they announced Federation Force, a multiplayer first-person shooter game that was essentially a spin-off. Needless to say, people were fucking pissed. After all that time waiting, all they got was a spin-off with these little Federation troops and not even Samus herself. The teaser was infamous for being dislike bombed to hell, and people wanted to remove the game instantly. People wanted Metroid, not this spin-off shit. Now, does this mean Federation Force was actually a bad game? No, it's fine. It may not be Metroid in its entirety, but it's not a broken mess or unplayable. It's a fine game, except for the fact it kind of sucks to play in single player. A big part of this game's reception was that it came out in a time where people wanted an actual Metroid game, so people judged it more critically because of it. And just a year after Federation Force released, Samus Returns came out, a remake of Metroid 2 that was a new Metroid game. And despite some issues I personally had with it, it was still a return to form that many fans enjoyed. I remember when Samus Returns released, people made some comments on how if Samus Returns was announced alongside Federation Force, then people would have been less harsh on it and perhaps would view it as its own thing. It wouldn't have been given the pressure and responsibility of carrying Metroid's future. You see what I'm doing? Imagine if when Bluebird was announced, we also got the announcement of a new Sif game, for example. Sif 3, Sifus 2, whatever the fuck you're imagining. You know how crazy that would be? Fans would rise from the dead being like, new Love Life game, and a lot of fans would be excited, and then in the corner eye they'd see, oh cool, also a new group. Love Life Bluebird is Federation Force. They are perfectly fine things, like I've said, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just the circumstances that it was released in that caused it to essentially be fucked in the ass. Now, I know I overplay the importance of the games because I just feel that way, but a live service game can really hold a lot of people. If your game is like semi-decent and has enough content that can keep people engaged, especially towards characters that people love, they will stay. Sif wasn't perfect. Sifus was definitely not perfect, but there were traces that engaged people, that united people, even if the people in charge fucking sucked their job and made the game ass. I will always remember the day I uploaded a short talking about Bluebird late at night when it was first announced, and seeing the barrage of comments that are not even talking about Bluebird. It was just, we want the games, we want the games, we want Sif back, we want Sifus back. And yes, I know, TikTok is not a valuable source of information because almost all the people in there are fucking brain dead, but let's not pretend their thoughts don't encapsulate a portion of what many people know Love Life for. Cut that uniting string, and many people will yearn for it back, and will place those thoughts and feelings on the first thing that appears in front of them, aka Bluebird. A lot of you keen minds may have noticed that I didn't mention a certain group when talking about how the past group started. And the reason why? Hasuna Sora is not relevant to this conversation. Tell me, did people think Hasuna Sora was going to be the savior of the entire Love Life franchise? The circumstances regarding Hasuna Sora were a lot more small scale. It got announced in a magazine for crying out loud. And when the series started, I think a lot of people instantly knew that this was not getting officially translated, or at least not going to be translated at a good pace. The live streams told me personally that we were fucked, not gonna lie. And Hasuna Sora definitely did suffer from having some people placing expectations on it similar to Bluebird, but I think most have realized that Hasuna Sora is just doing its own thing and isn't for them. That's probably the best outcome, as it can just live its life, and Hasuna Sora has done a good job at doing that. But a lot of people, again I'm not saying all people, are looking for something large scale, something that everyone can talk about, something like a game. And if you disagree, that's perfectly fine, this is just my perspective. I know many of you noticed I haven't really talked about the difference between how Bluebird is perceived in Japan versus how it is over here. Simple. I don't know, I don't live in Japan. What I do know is, they get all the cool shit, we don't. End of story. Attila's old as time, and it's like, no shit, they're based in Japan. And as you probably assumed, this video is mainly from the perspective of a global fan. So take everything I say for a grain of salt. I can say though that a lot of people, not just global fans, crave for a new game, and I think the reasons line up with what I stated earlier. Even if you disagree with everything I've said, you can at least agree that Love Life has grown and split into different paths, and that has created a separation in fans in terms of what they want and engage with. It existed back then, but has grown expeditiously due to Love Life becoming a multimedia franchise. And I get it, sometimes you're sick of my thoughts and the messages I try to spread. I come off as biased a little too often, so how about we have someone else talk about what they think of everyone's thoughts on Bluebird. Now, SecretSauce sent a fucking 5-page essay on his thoughts about everything Bluebird, and low-key I kinda stole most of your facts and inserted into the early parts of the video, so sorry. Sauce's perspective is interesting though, in what he determines what being a fan truly means. Before he sent me his response, he already had the perspective of being someone who wasn't really into the games, so it gives him a much different mindset compared to many other Love Life fans that were engaged with them. What is a fan? His words, not mine. With a multimedia series such as Love Life, there are certain levels of being a fan that Sauce brings up, which I think no one can really disagree with. A fan who only watches the anime or game falls low on the fan meter, while someone who consumes the anime, the games, and beyond would be higher on the fan meter. And for the record, this isn't a "I'm a better fan than you" competition. Sauce directly states that, as it's obvious some types of content won't jive with others, and you shouldn't be considered less of a fan for choosing not to engage with something. His perspective on games and even the anime start to be shown more apparent, as he doesn't fully believe it's the key for a group to become super duper awesome. He tackles points I addressed in the video, and going more in depth with how groups were implemented in the SIF, with Aqua getting a big amount of attention, Nijigasaki being on life support, and Layla being... The bottom line of his perspective is, if you're looking for content, you'll find it. If you're just looking for SIF 3 or another anime season, you'll feel that there's nothing, even if there's content in front of you. If it doesn't jive with you, it doesn't jive with you. But the fact is, content is there for those that want to see it. House Sora fans are getting the motion captured live streams, Bluebird's getting their audio drama videos, there's content if you want to see it. And again, Sauce isn't calling you a fake fan if you don't want to engage with it, but from his perspective, when people call Bluebird slow with its content and saying there's nothing going on, that's when he takes issue with it. He's very positive about this too. He genuinely wants people to engage with Bluebird in the many forms of content, encouraging people to broaden their horizons, and even to personally DM him on Discord and Twitter if you were interested in seeing what Bluebird and Love Life as a whole has to offer. Yeah, go DM him, not me. As the owner of the Bluebird Discord, Sauce is probably the most aware when it comes to the content Bluebird has produced. He did a lot comparing to other groups, which I already talked about, but the core of his message is what matters the most. In a growing multimedia series like Love Life, to get the most fulfillment and not feel there's a drop of content, you gotta engage with the other parts. But don't force yourself, of course, or else you're just gonna create discourse over how long Sora is. We're all fans of Love Life, and no matter what aspects we engage with, we should at least be able to stick together, especially when Love Life makes some dumbass decisions. So no, we're not cooked if there isn't an anime or if there isn't a game. Well, not necessarily. I pretty much understand and agree with Sauce's perspective, although I do personally think that as much as you can encourage getting the different aspects of a multimedia series, it's hard to really push that when a sizable portion of the fan base grew up with when it had much smaller things to get into. That could change as time goes by, as more and more fans start joining in the era in which we have so many groups to get into. I think if Love Life hadn't, gotten that big boom in the West over a decade ago with the games and the anime and stuff, then I'd be seeing a different tune, but unfortunately, it's a mark on Love Life's history that can never go away. If I'm wrong about this, please let me know, but I think newer fans will be open to and be less harsh on Bluebird because of what there is to engage with. They don't have the same standards / expectations that older Love Life fans may have, and whether that's good or bad is completely up to you. Some would say they don't know how good we had it back then, while some would argue that's better than ever. Cap! And listen, me and Sauce aren't trying to do conversion therapy on your ass and convince you Bluebird is actually the greatest thing ever in the history of Love Life. At least I'm not. I don't know about him. I just want you to reconsider your viewpoint on Bluebird and view it for what it is and what it's trying to be, not what you think it's supposed to be. Of course, this saying doesn't apply to everyone, and if you're just viewing Bluebird as its own, then more power to you. And if you don't fuck with Bluebird with what it's doing and that's it, then don't worry, most of what I said doesn't apply to you. I am gonna consistently give the Love Life higher up shit for placing Bluebird in this situation though, seriously, why would you do that? You placed the teaser in the one area that has almost every Love Life fan of every group that hasn't been united in a very long time. No shit people are gonna place expectations and a heavy burden on Bluebird for simply existing. For many people, there's not really something universally to look at, so I can't really say I'm surprised that Bluebird got hit with what it did. People are unintentionally putting the responsibilities of the entire Love Life franchise on this poor group, and it's not really anyone's fault. It's the fault of the fucking higher-ups. But that can change. We're only 7 months in, I gotta keep reiterating that. The thought process of Bluebird can change. It hasn't even been a year, come on guys. Imagine if we had the same attitude for Nijigasaki 7 months in when it was announced. Who knows, maybe in a few years when Bluebird is fully up and running, I'm gonna make a video called How Love Life Bluebird Proved Everyone Wrong, and talk about how Bluebird beat the odds. But I'd also need to clarify that this is all from the global perspective. Alright, I don't have any more notes for this video. Firstly, thank you SecretSauce for helping out with this video. It's always good to have a Bluebird enthusiast, and I hope your thoughts regarding Bluebird have slightly changed. Bluebird ain't perfect, but I don't think it deserves all the negative flack. Love Life experiments a lot, and you can really see it start more and more discussions. I mean, if discussions didn't exist, I wouldn't be making these videos. I'd be making Why Cosme is the best Niji character, which will come out soon. Spoiler alert. Also,